So I just finished recording bass for a new MERDARAHTA recording, and I thought it might be kind of cool to show you the pedal board I use for not only MERDARAHTA but also a lot of my solo stuff that I do. The main difference between this board when I use it for MERDARAHTA and my solo stuff is right here at the end of the chain where I got this chromatic tuner. When I'm doing my solo shows, I'll usually have this Maxon analog delay there instead, and the reason is because I run 2 amps, and what I'll usually do is I'll send the direct signal to one amp and I'll send the delayed signal to another amp, and by playing with the delay time a little bit here I can get some really cool stereo effects going on. So that's usually the only difference. For MERDARAHTA though, I have this tuner right here at the end of the chain, and I'll tell you why it's here at the end, but I'm going to start at the beginning. Before I do that though, I'm going to say that this board is probably not set up in the best way for all these pedals to interact with each other. For one, it's set up in a way that I was able to get all these pedals on here. It's a pretty tight fit, as you can see, and secondly, there is actually some logic to the order and the way that they are set up. I'm going to try to explain that as best as possible. So starting right at the beginning here, right at the beginning of my chain, the very first thing that my guitar is plugged into is this Boss DD6 digital delay pedal. The main thing that I use this pedal for is as a looper. It's got this hold feature which allows you to record a sample of 5.2 seconds. So basically I'll record my sample, and then I'll be able to turn it down and turn it up, and I'll have my first loop going on. Another thing that I'll use this pedal for sometimes is the warp feature, and that basically allows me to layer guitars. So as I hold this down, I'm playing something and I'll add, and I'm just kind of keeps layering and layering and building up, and playing with the delay time can help make some really crazy noises, and it really turns into a crazy wall of sound eventually. So usually when I'm trying to make that sort of build up in a song, and I'm trying to get this crazy harsh wall of sound and just kind of overpower everything else, that's what I'm going to reach for. The only other thing I sort of use on this pedal once in a while is the reverse mode, and basically I just crank the effect level and you get kind of like a reverse backwards guitar, which can be kind of cool. I don't use it a lot, but once in a while it can be pretty neat. The second thing in my chain is this Fairfield Unpleasant Surprise pedal. They describe it as a fuzz gate. I'm a big fan of Fairfield pedals. I have a lot of them. They always seem to have their main purpose, like this is a fuzz pedal, but they always have something else in there that makes it really interesting and really fun to play with, and this is kind of that gate function. What I use this pedal for mainly is the main distortion in MERDARAHTA. So I usually have this all the way on, the volume cranked, onset cranked. This is basically what will control the gate, so by having it crank, the gates completely open. There's a tone treble thing here, so I'll usually have that up. Gain here, also I'll have that up. The third switch is it's called crush, and that's basically what it does. It's going to crush your signal and really almost compress it, and the more you kind of play with the onset, the more you'll get that kind of pumping compression, and it starts to trigger the gate and starts cutting out a really cool feature. And I have used it on some recordings, but I don't really use it that much with MERDARAHTA. The only other thing I'll use this pedal for is as a kill switch. I'm going to explain that, but I'll move on to the next pedal because it'll help make a lot more sense. So the third thing I'm plugged into is this DL4, and the only thing I use this for is as a looper. This is just a looper. I don't use any of the echoes or the delays or anything going on. So basically what's going to happen is I have my initial loop here in the DD6, and that kind of feeds through, and then I can record it into the DL4. The DL4's got a bit of a longer recording or sample time as well. You know, it also has a feature here where you can half speed the samples or you can reverse the samples. You can play with that stuff. It's a pretty fun pedal as well. So I'll take a step back here and I'll tell you what I meant by a kill switch. So basically, what I do with this unpleasant surprise pedal often is that I'll have it on, but I'll have the volume at 0. So what this allows me to do is this allows me to record my guitar into the DD6 without it feeding through all these pedals and coming through my amp and making sound. And that's the main reason I have this little sticker here that says volume. That's basically just a reminder to me to make sure that the volume on my guitar is up so that I'm actually recording something. So often what I'll do is I'll have the volume all the way down on the unpleasant surprise. I'll record my loop. I'll have the volume all the way down on the level, and then I can turn this off and I can slowly start turning up the loop that I recorded, and it blends in really nicely, and then I can feed it into this guy and I can record it there, and then I can have this going, and then I can sort of turn down my initial loop as I'd be turning this one up, and then I can turn this back down, and then I can record even my second loop. So basically I'm playing between these two loopers to kind of create something that I think is going to sound really cool. And once I get to that point, that's when I'm going to move to the next section of my pedal board, which I would say is, I guess, more the modulation part of it. So let's start there. So the first pedal I'm going through after the DL4 is this Boss PS2 pitch shifter delay. Definitely not the greatest pedal in the world. I don't know if I would really use it as a straight up delay pedal, or I definitely wouldn't use it as a pitch shifter. It's not great sounding at all. But for noise and, you know, getting some weird sounds, I think it's pretty cool, and I've had some good experience with it, and I think I've got some pretty cool stuff out of it. One of the things I enjoy the most about this pedal is the balance. You know, it's really cool because I'm able to have this pedal on all the time, and I can pick whether I want a delay or I want a pitch shifter on, and you know, how I manipulate it, and then I can kind of blend it in nice and easily, or take it out, and I can have a lot or a little. So that's a lot of fun. This pedal is always on. One of the things I'll probably use this pedal for the most is actually the feedback feature here. If you have a delay pedal, you probably know what the feedback feature does. It'll just make it keep repeating, but when it's cranked, you'll start to get actual like feedback, really high-endy, kind of like hissy feedback, which, you know, sometimes I'm trying to get, and I'm able to get it with this pedal. And that's probably one of the big things I try and go for with this pedal when I start using it. The next thing I'm plugged into is this Fairfield Randy's Revenge, which is a ring modulator. If you've heard any of my solo recordings or even some MERDARAHTA recordings, you've definitely heard ring modulation on there, and this is the pedal that's doing that. Once again, it's got a mix knob here, which is cool, so I leave this pedal on and I kind of get to blend in the ring modulation as I want, so I can have it all the way or all the way down or somewhere in the middle. It's got a couple of switches, so I can you know, play with the wave shape. So either I can have a square or I can have a sine wave. I usually leave that on sine wave. I find that sounds the best. The square's kind of got more of like a rhythm to it, which I often don't really want, at least with the ring modulator. Then I can also play with the range, so I got a high and a low, and again, usually leave that on high, and then I get to, you know, select or sweep through the frequency or frequencies that I'm going for. The next thing I'm plugged into after the ring modulator is gonna be this Tube Screamer, this TS-808. Big fan of Tube Screamers. I like them a lot. I use a Tube Screamer with Fuck the Facts. On a lot of recordings, I've used Tube Screamers just for tone, but really for MERDARAHTA, this pedal's sole purpose is to create feedback. That's why I have everything cranked. As you can imagine, my sound is already pretty distorted coming through this fuzz pedal, and also on my head it's pretty driven as well. So really, when I go for this pedal, I'm just looking for harsh feedback, very high-endy, screeching for you know, just to cut through every time I make a stop. I just want it to really, you know, make your ears hurt. Another cool thing that I enjoy about hitting this pedal is that it kind of thins out my bass sound a little bit, which can be pretty cool. It'll make my bass sound a bit more clanky, and it's a bit more punching in a way, but it's also thinned out. So I'm kind of getting a different tone, and when I'm switching to the next part, you know, which could be a heavier part, I click it off and the low end comes back in, so it kind of gives this nice punch into the next part. So I don't use it for a lot of parts, but there's at least one part that I used it on this recording for that exact reason that I just explained. The next thing I got is the Four Eyes, again from Fairfield. And this is their fuzz crossover. You know, again, it's a fuzz pedal, but with a lot more to it. My main thing that I do with this is, you know, modulation of noise. You get to kind of select, you know, a low, medium, and high of the range that you want to go with the frequencies. I usually have it on high. This allows me to kind of sweep from a very low, low, low to a very high, high, high. And that's what I'm playing with a lot, but I'll also go up here to the EQ, which is kind of cool. So I can, you know, take out some of the lows. I can make it a bit more shrill, can add more low end if I want. You know, I can play with the mids. So that really allows me to, you know, manipulate my loops that are coming through and play with it right here at the end. So here we are at the very end of my signal chain is this tuner, which is kind of a weird place for a tuner to be. Normally I would have the tuner be the very first thing I plug into, but for MERDARAHTA it's here, and it's here for a reason actually. I do use it as a tuner. I have to make sure that, you know, all these other pedals are off if I want to actually get a proper reading, but I do use it to tune. But the main thing I use it for is actually just a kill switch. There's some parts, you know, where I want to have a really tight stop, and instead of bouncing around here through all these pedals trying to figure out which one's making the noise, you know, I'm able to just kill everything right here. So, you know, if there's a stop, I just slam on that and it's silent, and, you know, I can kick back in when I want. And that's it.